Can help cybersecurity. My name is Andrew Hall. I go by RuShan in the hacker community. My Twitter handle is at RuShan_EE. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a graduate student at the University of Utah right now doing an executive MBA. I graduate this May. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering. I have my CISSP. I'm an electronics hobbyist. I enjoy making badges. For other things, I did the DC 801 DEF CON badge and DC for DEF CON 24 through 26. I always like to be learning, trying new things, and open to new opportunities to grow. Always fun. I have a little disclaimer there. Not sure how well it's readable, but it's basically you can be anything you want to be, and different ways and different aspects of doing it. Sometimes you just get thrown into it. Sometimes you luck out. Sometimes you have to work hard at it. But can you be everything you want to be? Is a big question. So outline, I will go over what is system engineering, why NIST is using it with cybersecurity. A lot of it will be with the systems security engineering aspect of NIST, why cybersecurity should be more like systems engineering, how management can help make cybersecurity successful, why cybersecurity should be separated from IT, why education is important to cybersecurity, and open for questions. I have a little bit of references in the back. Hey, to go in, what is systems engineering and why is NIST using it with cybersecurity? The big document is the NIST 800-160, Systems Security Engineering. It goes through, it has volume 1 and 2. Great aspect on how you have to look at systems from a big view. You have to incorporate more than a single silo to go through it. And then they have the 800-53 Rev 5, which is still in draft, that goes through all of those individual requirements through physical security, through configuration management, integration, programming, hardware, software, many aspects. As it goes through, you have to really look at the picture fully in order to get a grasp on security. So system engineering, they always look at broad domains and go through within your mechanical, electrical, engineering aspects. Cyber needs to look at hardware, software, look at human resources, the human element, how you do badging, how the organization works as a whole, and make sure it gets all the groups together. So go into more, there's a nice system engineering lifecycle picture to go through. Cradle to grave is important. You need to look at it from the beginning to the requirements before you're getting started in the subject. They need a cybersecurity expert there with the other main policy setters in order to really continue and grow. They need to be embedded into the program process. They need to learn every aspect, be involved in meetings and into the requirements, the testing, the valve air at the end. You need to really see the full picture in order to be successful doing security, and especially cybersecurity as a whole. Look at the big view and going through. So follow the system engineering cycle will help make the picture become clearer and get you into a good track moving forward. So continuing on, cybersecurity experts need to have broader base of education. They need to really be diverse, understand many aspects in all the different domains and silos that they have to pertain with. So it will help them think outside the box, research and development in the field, progress the field, get it into a more secure discipline with better career growth and aspects, and keep moving the profession forward. Kind of like with engineering, that you keep engineering yourself out of a job. You keep pushing it and perfecting it and making it so it's easier to keep the basic securities at bay and get into more depth and in your processes. This quote is out of the the NIST 800-160 document from 1970 that security controls in a computer system is in itself a systems design problem. A combination of hardware, software, communication, physical, personnel, and administrative processes safeguards is required to comprehensive security. In particular, software safeguards alone are not sufficient. So really you have to look at the big picture. You can't just look at software to help save you in hardware issues and vice versa. You really need to start integrating and looking at the picture as a whole and understanding your products in all aspects. So you go through 10,000 foot picture, fully incorporated. You need to look at problems in their entirety. You aren't siloed in your problems. Problems are cross-domain. You need to go through everything. Simon Ramo, the quote up here, he's one of the fathers of systems engineering, which was part of TRW group. And it concentrates on the design and application of the whole as distinct from the parts, looking at a problem in its entirety, taking into account all facets and all the variables, and relating the social to the technical. So really, you have to understand the business side in some regards and the technical sides, and be able to communicate them together to make the most out of being especially a manager in cybersecurity, but definitely within the cybersecurity field, you need to be diverse in your knowledge and understanding. And going in, management account, because it should not fall under IT management, should have requirements direction for hardware and software. It really should be a pusher to your requirements filled for cybersecurity, just like system engineers, since you can see the full picture, see the problem as a whole in the entirety. They should be able to make better requirements for your developers and your hardware designers to get more in line and not be so stagnant and siloed in the requirements where they end up causing more issues when they come together than they really should. Managers should have an understanding of all aspects of cybersecurity, of both software, hardware vulnerabilities, know what is required to fulfill the mission of the group and lead change in the organization. They need to really push to make the organization better and not keep it in a cycle that's redundant and causes more harm than good, where we end up with same vulnerabilities over and over again. We need to move on and progress out of that. And then managers need to work on staffing, training, tools, and equipment. It's important to keep education in your cybersecurity group within the domains. You have to have a diverse group. You can't have experts all in software or all in hardware. You need to have a dynamic group that covers many domains where they're SMEs over subjects, but can also work together. One slide. Okay. Also, they should look at standards like RMF, Risk Management Framework, through the DoD, PCI, DSS, and other aspects, in that those are cores that you can build upon and help understand and help push as they cover multiple domains and aspects. And the biggest thing is to remove obstacles. As a manager over a cyber group, you need to remove obstacles, let them into other groups, can destroy the silos that are out there within industry and in a lot of businesses where groups don't really talk to each other. The cyber group needs to be basically incorporated into all groups that deal with a product that has potential for vulnerabilities, and really help build your corporation and business as a whole. You go through, as the DoD moves on and other things, that they've also learned that cyber IT and cybersecurity need to be separated. different domains. Cybersecurity is more of a overarching analyst management aspect compared to IT that gets into more of your nuts and bolts as your network operators, software developers, and everything that kind of do all the implementation, while your cybersecurity deals more into your requirements, overarching integration, ISSM, information system security managers, to be able to make everything come together as a whole and work well with each other. The career paths are still being defined in many things, as we all know in most regards. As companies mature and grow, they're defining their career paths a little bit differently as they figure out what type of security really needs to be done and where it needs to be placed. And it needs to be really improving the requirements and policies. We need to move up into C-suite and get it into the boards to understand that security is as a big issue and needs to be talked through amongst everyone and be incorporated into a lot of groups that right now some are lacking any type of security insight when they really should have a lot more into them. Goes through cybersecurity grows by making hard things easy, engineering yourself out of a job, make complex things easy. Needs to be shared and vetted in the industry. So as we progress and information is shared more, it needs to be vetted and verified. It helps go through. Systems engineering is great in that regard. A lot of help going through doing modeling, system modeling, and everything else. Cybersecurity is doing some modeling. We'll get more into it. And as you model and get more understanding of the complex systems, they'll become easier, and the security aspects can evolve into more appropriate protections for your end users and for your equipment to kind of aligns your end product to the risk at the end. That makes everyone a lot more happier. Maturing field, saturated with lots of credentials, the field solidifying. I'll talk more on the education side a little bit later. Breadth of an organization, cross-vulnerability protection. As lots of things go, the hardware and software, there's vulnerabilities in both sides that they sometimes work well together, but a lot of times they have issues. So here's some key questions that deal with education and certifications. Will a degree help you advance in your career? Is the institution accredited by the right organization? Will experience be able to replace a degree with future opportunities? Big questions that have hit the cybersecurity and security field within the last few years. And then credentials, is the certification accredited? Do you already have a certificate that's equivalent or higher than the one that your business is looking for, or your customer required to have perform work that you do? In some industries like DoD, you have to have certain certs in order to do certain jobs. This is how they go. They're trying to realign that so education can sometimes replace certifications. So it's going to be interesting to go through. I'll start with the quote at the bottom, which is kind of unique in that the whole economics boom in cybersecurity seems largely to be consequence of poor engineering, which in some regards I think is true. Poor engineering, poor practices, poor policies have led to kind of the mess of cybersecurity that we have now. We have so many different vulnerabilities, bad products coming out, poor standards, no real leeway for consumer IoT devices to really be released with no understanding that they aren't going to mess up your home environment and let hackers in or adversaries into places that they aren't supposed to be. It's starting to hit a lot of industries that usually weren't connected. Now they're starting to be connected, and they're hitting new vulnerabilities that they have to get taught up really quickly, like industrial control systems. With degrees, it's more than a piece of paper when properly obtained. Engineering degrees are accredited by ABIT. ABIT is starting to do accreditation with cybersecurity now. They have 3 universities that they're doing undergrad accreditation right now and pushing to set up standards within at least the engineering aspect with cybersecurity. So both the Naval and Air Force Academies and a University of Missouri are kind of their pilot programs right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of the schools and education goes with accreditation and how it's going to push the field into standards where HR will be able to understand basis of people coming in with certain type of credentials, kind of like what they do with engineering, where you can then figure out you hire more for fit and how well the applicant will learn in your environment more than just your raw skills in some regards, because our field is really changing dynamically right now. And especially as you move up, degrees are definitely nice within management and above, and that's kind of been the nature in a lot of fields. But they do have issues. You just can't stop at the degree. You have to continue the education. You have to continue the training, because our field is still dynamic. It's not going to be stagnant like any other field, especially in the sciences. We have to continue to learn. Go through CPEs and certifications kind of help in that regard, help maintain your understanding and push the education aspect, especially within employers. Membership into organizations are also good to help share information and vet information amongst those in the industry. Going into certifications, there's lots of different certification organizations, ISC Squared, SANS, CAMTIA, Offensive Security. There's a whole gamut that all provide certs that are all basically equivalent or slightly better, slightly worse. All variable, depends on your employer and who you go to and who's teaching you the class and everything else. DoD has put in credentials and certifications and positions. Right now, 8570 goes through it. The updated 8140 that's going to come out is going to be a lot better on that, where they'll go into better job aspects and not just have it generalized as a technician, manager aspects. And it's going to be interesting to see how industry will respond with that as they go into that. Developers in cyber should have this cert or this type of education to work on things, and managers having certain ones. Really, you shouldn't show a whole bunch of certificates after your name. You should just show the most applicable and the highest levels, because that's really what you're showing off. All the other ones are kind of building steps up to the bigger certs. Our industry needs to be a little bit better at having alphabet soup after our names and keep it simple. A lot of it was built from the IT side instead of the engineering side in that regard, and really they need to have better cross compatibility amongst all the certification organizations, especially if they're all accredited. Go through, I touched over a lot of this. Teamed with a degree though, like professional engineering, it might look like cybersecurity might require that you get a degree and then you get a license or a certificate in a certain aspect, especially if it deals with things that are liabilities of human finance, high economic aspects. Like professional engineering, you do it in with buildings that or bridges, because they can kill people. Different aspects, cybersecurity might have different regards, where we might end up with certs that are more aligned to deal with forensics and things that are caught up in that are law abiding, that have really strict guidance, where it makes a little bit more sense to have the certifications to go with it. That's my presentation, so I have it up for questions right now.
If you're just fixing
So pushing to fix the organization as a whole instead of the systems that you're working on, that's a big part that needs to be pushed on, and why cybersecurity needs to move out of IT into its own domain, so it has a better aspect to help push organizations in the right way. That it's not an IT issue, it's a cyber issue, it's a thing that everyone needs to pay attention to, not just the IT department needs to go fix this. It's your engineering department, your human resource department, your marketing department all have vulnerabilities, all have aspects that they need to be better educated and aligned with, and they need to work in with a core cyber or security group a lot better than what a lot of businesses are right now. So you basically have to mature your organization to understand that cyber needs to touch everyone. Any other questions? So, okay, so you asked where cybersecurity should fall if it doesn't fall under IT, right? Where it should sit in the organization. So there really should be a CSO position that falls in with the CTO and CIO at a lot of organizations, especially if you deal with applications that can affect others, where they line up on par with the IO and TO in the organization, because the security person needs to put requirements and work with them into both of the other organizations, as well as get the CEO on board and understand that the technology side won't always do it, the information side won't always do it. The security really is the catalyst between the two groups to make it that it will protect your device and the consumers and your customers in the end. And have a high level view up there, then that will push down and get it so that, because if it falls under them, then the CTO and the CIO can outvoice and can nerf your security program, so it really needs to be its own entity on par with the others. Any other questions? I guess not. So thank you for attending my talk. I'll throw up my reference. So Incasi is a system engineering group that does a certification for system engineering, where I got some of my information. The DAU, the Defense Acquisition University, has information. ITech is that they go through a lot of the NIST documents and give their view on information. The DoD Manual 8140 is on draft right now. It's not public at this time. Once it goes public, it'd be a great thing to go look at, because they really dissected the 8570. If you looked at that manual, and there's a little triangle of positions to requirements, that they've blown it up a lot and made it more precise for different job categories. And it's going to be a really good improvement on that regard to help understand career paths and what type of education and credentials should be going after. And then NIST is always a great place as they keep pushing and updating their documentation. Feel free to send me any questions on Twitter or other things, and thank you for attending.